What is a republic? We have all heard that our country is a democracy. However, we are also taught that the United States was formed as a republic. So which one is it? When asked what sort of government the delegates to the Constitutional Convention had created, Ben Franklin was quoted as replying, "A republic if you can keep it." That is good enough for most historians and most Americans. Ben Franklin was certainly authoritative on this matter. If he says Congress established a republic, who can second guess him? A republic it is. The fact is, by most current day definitions, there is little difference between a democracy and a republic. Thus we hear both types mentioned when referring to the current U.S. civil structure. A few characteristic descriptions of a republic can be gleaned from some dictionaries. A country that is governed by elected representatives and by an elected leader, such as a president, rather than by a king or queen. A government having a chief of state who is not a monarch and who in modern times is usually a president. A unity of people or a nation having a republic form of government. Of course, that definition is a bit circular. These simple definitions seem to indicate that a republic is a form of government. The two single distinguishing points to take away are: 1. The chief leader is not of the stature of a king, nor is he a dictator. And 2. The people's mandate will only be considered after being filtered through the free will and ethics of proxy representatives, which means in a republic, we the people are at the mercy of our so-called representatives, which today exposes the massive flaw in the structure. Very comforting indeed. For the sake of brevity, we must reduce this discussion to a simple analysis and sober assessment of a republic. The word is derived from two Greek words, res and publica, which can loosely be translated to English as the interest or wealth of the public. The ideas that came to be referred to as a republic go back to about 380 BC in Greece, to the philosopher Aristocles, better known as Plato, who wrote down some of his ideas while deeply engrossed in discussion with others of his philosopher peers such as Socrates. In his work, The Republic, Plato carries on a series of discussions asking and attempting to answer many questions involving justice, governance, and the souls of men. This work has had a very large impact on our modern concepts regarding governance and civilization. Plato was the quintessential classical liberal with broad collectivist leanings. His dialogues and descriptions were picked up throughout the ages and given many different analysis and interpretation by many elite and elitist scholars, thinkers, philosophers, and politicians to bring about our modern ideas regarding both democracies and republics and the philosophy of government in general. Whether termed a republic or a democracy, the modern state, derived from the foundation of Plato's description, with little exception, is a social structure with a conic or pyramid shape composed of 3 levels, which we will call Plato's pyramid. Despite several thousand years of massaging Plato's ideas, and with only a few variations, all 3 levels are still firmly in place in the model for our republic. Regarding structure, Plato himself in his dialogues seemed to recognize and advocate the need for the iron hand to enforce the given roles and fate that individuals were elected to by the rigid state. However, he also believed that each person in the structure should be given a role for something they are well suited to. The most important thing to note is that since Plato and even before, the philosophy of governance has been defined and constructed by those who we today would consider elite or elitist. It was tailored to their particular purposes and agendas, while, in relative terms, the common people's voice has more or less been left out, even given that history has witnessed several movements with the aims of uplifting the mandates of the common. It has mostly come very begrudgingly, and we struggle with that today. In Plato's view, the top layer of the pyramid is composed of those members of the society whose lives and interests should matter the most. These he called philosopher kings, which can bring many things to mind, but mostly it means pretty much what it sounds like. These are the strata of members of the society who rule as kings and who employ their self-declared endowment of superior intellect and other qualities as philosophers to justify their positions of power in the society. Although debatable, it is argued that he believed this to be a proper structure, leading to a system he considered the most stable and yielding the highest justice. This belief reflects his attitude toward the other levels of the society in which he lived. He saw them as inferior, but considered his fellow philosopher ilk were born endowed with the substance and right to make all of the rules the society should live by. Today, this top tier is made up of those mostly characterized not particularly by their wisdom, fairness, or brilliant philosophical prowess, as one might expect by way of Plato's ethic, but only by significant wealth. These individuals are rarely known by the public, but are anonymous, as they shun the light of day. They compose the hidden hand, billionaires by birth or by fortune. Although there are factions, all of these have affiliations in a kind of globalist brotherhood involving the New World Order. The second strata of Plato's pyramid is composed of the enforcer class he called guardians. Their role is to protect the top level from the rabble of the third and final level, thus allowing them to do their kingly philosopher duty unimpeded. These guardians are to be indoctrinated into the idea that the state and agenda defined and held by the philosopher kings is infallible, so it must be preserved and protected at all costs. They may even be called upon to sacrifice themselves to preserve the order. These guardians hold the philosopher kings on a very high pedestal and aspire to join with them. Therefore, recruitment of high-level pets for the philosopher kings may be drawn from their ranks. Today, this guardian class is also the second level in our world. Unlike the top tier, these are quite visible, and we see them daily. These compose the operatives or agents of the top tier, commissioned with maintaining the structure of the state. They have a powerful influence over the most broad to the most mundane aspects of our personal lives. It is made up of those groups who interject themselves into our world daily. Metaphorically, a great cohort with sword, buckler, and shield who also divide the spoils. Those we call the government, and also by many who are not of the government but participate. Examples of these guardians are politicians, political operatives, and the upper ranks of government management. The CIA and all intelligence services, those who control the military, virtually all media and institutions of any stature, public or private, virtually all members of academia and the institutions of public education, and a significant portion of law enforcement. Non-government affiliated guardians include a significant portion of the global clergy, associated religious institutions, and fraternal orders. This tier also includes most sanctioned global corporations, their CEOs, major shareholders, and directors. Many of these resources convene in policy institutions or so-called think tanks to strategize on carrying out the agenda of the top tier. The dictates are then handed down to the various guardian organs of government, media, academia, etc. for execution. In addition, there is also a sizable sub-tier of this group, composed mostly of lapdog supporters, Kool-Aid drinking, bomb-throwing, googly-eyed true believers, and dutiful minions. Understanding the nature of this structure puts a much different perspective on what we have been led to believe is the role of government. Most of us were taught that our government, the government of the United States of America, was to serve the interests of the American people and preserve the nation. Instead, this reveals its true purpose, to act as a buffer between the vast numbers of the common and the few elitist members of society, to serve and protect their interests, to enact and carry out their agenda alone, with or without the consent of the people, regardless of the havoc that may ensue. All forms of the modern state have been designed to work for this purpose. All forms are variations of Plato's pyramid and include republics, democracies, fascist, socialist, and communist, etc. It should be unnecessary to mention who the third and final level are, but for the sake of illustration, we will confirm what most would conclude. These are the masses of poor and common people. Today they make up the bulk of we the people. They compose people from the lower, middle, and in many cases the more wealthy classes of our society. They are considered less than important or necessary by the two upper tiers, whereas what has become more obvious by each passing decade in our most recent century, the truth of the matter is, the two upper tiers are showing signs of obsolescence and are in danger of melding down into the bottom. This structure, having been described some 2,400 years ago, is pretty much a mirror of our system today, and that is not a coincidence. Behold the Republic,